All right. Well, good afternoon and welcome everyone, and welcome to another ShareWise webinar. My name is Harry Ma. I'm one of the investment managers here at ShareWise. Today, we're very fortunate to be joined by PharmX Technologies CEO Tom Culver. We've got some very interesting questions prepared for Tom, and as always, we're very keen to keep the floor open for any additional questions our participants might have. So if there are any questions, please feel free to put them below in the Q&A box. As per usual, this webinar will be recorded, so if you can't make the whole live session, it'll be available on our YouTube channel for viewing later. Without further ado, Tom, a very good afternoon to you, and thanks for your time today.
Thanks, Harry, and thanks for having me. Good afternoon, everyone.
Very good. Well, I think first things first, could you just start by giving our audience a brief overview of PharmX Technologies and the unique role it plays, obviously, in the healthcare pharmacy sector in Australia?
Yeah, absolutely. So PharmX Technologies Limited is Australia's largest pharmacy ordering network. We've got a fantastic legacy. We've been around in market for almost 2 decades. And ultimately, we operate as the kind of critical infrastructure that sits in the middle of the entire industry. So we connect through to 99% of pharmacies in the industry. We operate with all the major wholesalers and suppliers in the industry, as well as the key point of sale vendors and other key vendors in the industry, as well as government agencies, particularly the Department of Health, and working closely on the NDSS, which is the distribution of diabetes services into the pharmacy sector. So we're an incredibly important part of an incredibly important industry with a long legacy, and that is focused around technology and connectivity of those services. I think the unique role, going to your question, Harry, the unique role we play is the fact that we are responsible for the vast majority of transaction ordering that happens through this industry. We process almost $19 billion of orders every year on behalf of pharmacies and their suppliers. And that's a role that comes with great responsibility. So, we take responsibility around high availability in our technology services and systems to make sure that this industry continues to operate as it should, and ultimately for pharmacists to be able to continue to give care to their patients, and ultimately for patients and pharmacy customers to receive their medications and their drugs. And that's a fantastic position to be in. It's a big responsibility, but that comes with it as well a number of key exciting opportunities for us in the future.
Absolutely. And obviously your primary customers, you said, are the pharmacies themselves, but you've also got those other touch points that you're working with as well to enhance the offering.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a marketplace ultimately. We have multiple customers. Pharmacies are incredibly important. They are the originators of all trade ultimately in the industry. So they are one of our customers. They're an incredibly important part of the marketplace. But the marketplace doesn't operate without the other side, which is the supplier network, the inventory management network, everything that does to supply goods into the sector. And again, the connectivity that we have with the government agencies and the third-party vendors to make sure all of the industry is connected and operating is essentially what we do. And that sits with what we call our gateway. So the PharmX gateway is our core piece of technology that operates across that entire industry.
Okay, yeah. And obviously, as you said, it's nearly been established, or it's been in the industry for nearly 2 decades. I think I saw you guys were established in 2006. Obviously, your recent, the leadership change, your recent appointment, I think you said was about 9 months ago. What are the immediate priorities on your end, and how do they align with the PharmX's overall mission?
Yeah, I mean, PharmX has gone through a pretty significant transition over the years. Originally, we were founded by 4 established POS vendors, so point of sale vendors in the industry, who essentially came together and said, look, ordering and pharmacy needs to be modernized. It needs to be systemized. We need to increase accuracy and we need to increase efficiency. And so PharmX was born off the back of that desire. Fast forward almost 2 decades later, as I said, we're one of the largest players in the industry and we're critical to the infrastructure. With me coming in, I come in at a time when PharmX has come out of a larger organization. So previously, PharmX was a business unit within a group called Quorum Health. Quorum Health still exists. Quorum Health runs point of sale services, dispensary services, and payment services. and PharmX stands alone now with our EDI solution, our marketplace solution, and our analytics solution. So as I come in this kind of transitional period, it's really about refocusing the business for future growth, and importantly, reorientating the business as a technology company. As I say, because of its, I guess, its humble beginnings, it's really been a service company that's there to serve the industry. As we gain our independence and our authority in the industry, it's about the technology solutions that we can provide. And if we think about what our opportunity is and what our mission and our objectives are as a business, we are here to make a difference to healthcare through innovation. Our mission is to create the most seamless multi-channel ordering platform in the world and focusing on pharmacy. And we believe we're in a fantastic position to do that. And that's what I'm here to do.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously you talk to solutions. I mean, the whole business is known for its gateway solution, which, as we know, is used by 99% of Australian pharmacies. You talk on the points of efficiency. What do you think the overall benefits are of the service for Australian pharmacies and obviously suppliers as well?
Yeah, I mean, efficiency is, it's not the sexiest word in the world, but it certainly is a key driver, particularly on both sides of the marketplace. So the way that our technology works is we're what's called an EDI solution, which is an integrated electronic data interchange. And essentially what that does is it systemizes and categorizes information and formats in a similar and standardized way. And that means we can take a message from any pharmacy from around the country operating with any point of sale vendor and using messages and placing orders in any which way they want, whether that's through point of sale, email, fax, PDF, through a broker coming into their store, consolidating those messages and then operating across a very, very wide supply market on the other side to transmit those messages and receive orders and control that order flow. And so with that systemization brings a huge amount of efficiency on both sides of the market. As we think about for suppliers, it provides that kind of automated connection to that very broad network of pharmacies that operate within our network, enabling that kind of efficient order management and data exchange. From a pharmacy side of things, it gets a little bit more human. What it does is it gives pharmacies back more time to go and spend time with their patients and their customers. On average, we calculate that a pharmacy saves about 40 minutes per ordering session by using our system than what it used to be like before our systems existed, or if our systems disappeared. We do constant research with our customers on both sides of the market, and with our recent research with our pharmacy groups, it was described as if PharmX disappeared, there would be total chaos. And I think that really just kind of hammers home the role we play and how important this piece of technology is for this sector.
Yeah, absolutely. And not even time efficiency, but also cost efficiency as well, by the sounds of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and you mentioned at the start the PharmX Marketplace, which is obviously described as an advanced e-commerce platform for pharmacies and suppliers. Could you elaborate on the technology behind this platform and how it enhances the buying and selling process for the pharmacy ecosystem?
Yeah, absolutely. We see our marketplace as the go-to B2B platform for Australian pharmacists. It's an easy access platform. It's web-based. It's for suppliers and it's for pharmacies. Ultimately, what it does is it modernizes trading in a market that is very established and quite traditional in some ways. And modernization works for both suppliers and for pharmacies. So again, talking about suppliers first, what the marketplace does is it gives a place for digital distribution and extended reach beyond the typical way that suppliers aim to bring in customers. So suppliers spend a lot of time with their reps on the road, going out, knocking on doors, seeing pharmacies one-on-one, and often having to spend quite a long time in store with a pharmacy because they're busy dealing with customers and waiting their turn. It's a very, very inefficient way of growing. It's a very, very inefficient way of getting broad market reach. And so what that means is that typically, most suppliers, if they think about how they can deal directly with a pharmacist, they're probably limited to capturing or dealing with about 2,000 pharmacies overall. Our network obviously extends that through the marketplace capability to give them access to the full kind of 6,000 pharmacies.
Yeah. Okay. And yeah,
Sorry,
to
and I was
talk.
going to say, yeah, and it kind of goes on to give other benefits to those suppliers as well. It allows them to run promotions. It allows them to serve goods and products in different ways, issue new products out to market, issue alternative products out to market in a way that has never been able to be done in this place before.
Exactly. Yeah. And talking about market reach, obviously having a presence here in Australia for the last 22 years, does PharmX plan to expand beyond Australia, or what's the short term, long term goals?
Yeah, so we already operate in New Zealand.
Okay.
We've got a growing footprint in New Zealand, which we've expanded on with one of our key partners. So
Mhm.
we deal with all the major dealer groups and banner groups in Australia. And so we are operating in New Zealand with one of them. We are in the process of extending that global reach into other regions. We have ambitions to work with our current partners in both the European markets and Southeast Asian markets as well.
Okay, fantastic. You mentioned earlier that one of the pharmacies mentioned that without PharmX, it would be total chaos. If a supplier decided to go directly to pharmacies instead of using PharmX, what impact would this have on the ecosystem, and what challenges would they generally be facing by bypassing PharmX technologies?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting one. I mean, it could be done.
Mhm.
Suppliers could go direct to pharmacies. But what happens is it means that they have a very, very high cost of entry into market. They have got very low distribution capabilities, and they've got no way of having the kind of systematic reach that we can provide. Similarly, what we hear from pharmacies is, well, in fact, what happens is every time a new supplier does go into a pharmacy store for the first time and says, I've got a new product. Would you like to order it? They tell them to join PharmXchange. So
Yep.
actually, our biggest advocates are the pharmacies because it creates the efficiency and the time saving on their side. They know how to do it and they know what they want. So
Yep.
it could happen. It seems increasingly unlikely as we maintain our kind of dominance in the industry. That if a supplier wants reach, if they want systemization, if they want efficiency, and if it's what pharmacies want, then they're going to continue to use our network.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. A question on the industry and competitors, and it was a key theme in some of the questions that some of our attendees put forward prior
Mm.
to the webinar commencing. What do you think the unique advantages are that PharmX offers compared to, say, other platforms in the market? And what do you believe suppliers and pharmacies? Why do you believe farmers and suppliers would choose PharmX over its competitors?
Yeah, it's a fascinating question, and it's an area that we keep a very detailed eye on. As we think about what competitors are to start with. There are direct and indirect competitors. Direct competitors are very few and far between and very small. So there is
Yeah.
one direct competitor for our EDI gateway services. It's currently a very, very small offering. And in our recent survey results, it was recognized by less than 5% of the pharmacy network of even existing. So it's out there. It's not overly sizable at this point. And again, we think we have the position to maintain.
Yeah.
Similarly, on the marketplace side, there is one direct competitor there. But frankly, this direct competitor needs our network to operate in the market. They're
Okay.
a VAS, and we operate with them directly. So I think what is unique about us is the size of our network, the
Mm.
reach is incredibly important. And the second thing is our integration. So the ability for our services to be fully integrated into our gateway network. So our marketplace services, our analytics services are all operating from our gateway services, giving a completely seamless experience back to those customers, which nobody else can deliver on.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. And the revenue model across all products, can you go into a bit more detail as to how fees are structured for pharmacies and suppliers? What role do wholesalers play in that as well? Yeah, just a bit about the revenue model.
Yeah, so we generally make revenue in three ways,
Mhm.
and those are based on our product services. So our gateway, our marketplace, and our analytics services. Our gateway services, we generate revenue through account-based fees, and the
Okay.
way that it works is it's a multiple of how many suppliers that each individual pharmacy wishes to connect to in our network, and we charge a fee to the supplier for that connection. So in theory, we have 140 suppliers operating in our network today. We have 6,000 pharmacies. Every single one of those pharmacies could operate with 140 suppliers, generating 140 fees per pharmacy. Obviously, that would be a perfect world. We're not there yet. We certainly have ambitions, but it's in realistic terms, our average ranges, depending on our cohort, between 25 connections down to 7 connections. So that's our kind of core revenue source. Through our marketplace, it's a very different model. We generate revenues through essentially percentages of order volume. So a commission on the orders, again, paid by the supplier. With our analytics proposition, it is basically a fee per pharmacy based on the data feed. And this would, again, depend on who the customer is in this instance. So we have supplier customers and we have pharmacy customers, and then we're increasingly looking at third-party customers. So those who sit outside of the industry, who would benefit from data overview. And, this is government bodies, insurance companies, etc. So very, very different model, but it's still meaningful.
Yeah. Just on that, you said there's 6,000 pharmacies, and you said they can have up to 140 suppliers working with each individual pharmacy. Is that growing each year, or has that maintained pretty stable the last few years?
No, it's growing each year. It grows naturally with the trends of where pharmacies are ordering from. Which are influenced by their consumers in part, it's influenced by market trends, etc. It's also grown by new suppliers that we bring into our network. And that's a real focus area for us as we look forward. Increasing that universe of suppliers increases the number of connections that pharmacies have with those suppliers.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. A bit of an obscure question here, but how would a potential pharmaceutical merger such as between Sigma and Chemist Warehouse affect PharmX's business model and strategy moving forward?
Great question. Clearly everyone's keeping an eye on this in this sector. I think there's no confirmation that the merger is going to go ahead, at least not that we're aware of in a public sense. It's quite likely, I believe, that it could go ahead. What it does for us as a business is very little impact, to be frank. We operate, and you can read into this what you will, but we operate with all the key wholesalers in the market. We operate with all the key pharmacies in the market. And so if 2 of those were to merge, it would create greater efficiencies within their business. But I actually think the embedded nature of our technology solutions into all of those businesses would continue to provide a significant amount of value. If you were to take an example of a pharmacy group that's until a merger would be very focused on their internal pharmacy network, let's call it 1,000 stores. Suddenly they go to a merger to a wholesaler. Suddenly their responsibilities to the market change quite dramatically. They're no longer just serving their 1,000 stores. They're now serving an entire market. And that's a massive shift. And fundamentally, our technology is there to help them serve that. So I think from our perspective, nothing would change. I hope what it would mean is that we'd play an important role in what that transition in market would be.
Yeah. Okay. I can see we got a question come through the Q&A chat, which is fantastic, and we'll get to that towards the end. And I encourage other participants to put their questions in. Obviously, you've got the gateway solutions, you've got the marketplace. What do you see as being the biggest areas for growth for the business, say in the next 12 months?
Yeah, in the next 12 months, we're very, very focused. I try and keep things quite simple, right? So we're an established business. We're clear on what our growth metrics are. If we think about our business as essentially a flywheel, we know what stimulates growth. And so for us, stimulating growth is suppliers. The more suppliers we can bring into our network, as I mentioned before, that has the opportunity to increase the number of accounts that each pharmacy is dealing with. Bringing more suppliers into our network also drives more volumes through our platforms, which also links directly to our revenue. More suppliers in our network leads to more accounts, more volumes, which leads to better, broader, deeper, more rich data solutions, which also in turn then drive more supplier acquisitions. So we think about suppliers as the kind of key focus area for us in this business. Today, we work with around 140 suppliers. We'd be looking to grow that by kind of 70% this year from where we are today.
Yeah, perfect. And what do you think that space looks like? You know, do you know as a percentage, how many suppliers you work with as opposed to, the potential growth, future growth?
Yeah, so the future growth is enormous. And
Yeah,
I think it takes a bit of a shift in thinking from the kind of traditional view of what pharmacy and a pharmacy supplier is to realize what the maximum opportunity in this space is.
of
I
course.
think traditionally we've looked at the wholesalers as being incredibly important, and I hope they will remain being incredibly important for this industry for many, many years to come. But as we then think about then direct suppliers, you kind of have your very large core direct suppliers who've been very established. But if you then start thinking about, well, where do consumers go? Where do consumers start buying products from? And if you start looking at the B2C market and thinking about how many of those B2C businesses would like to start providing goods and services directly into the B2B market, then your universe expands very, very dramatically. So in that kind of traditional sense, the 140 we deal with today, we think there's a realistic view that that could expand closer to 400 to 500. If we think in that area, if we also start to think global, if we go outside of the more kind of traditional view, I mean, there's 15,000 B2C businesses in Australia that deal in beauty and health alone. So the world becomes very, very large. And that's a very interesting thing to start thinking about. We, again, harking back to our research, we heard from a pharmacy just the other day that because castor oil is trending on TikTok, they're suddenly being inundated with local people coming into their store asking for advice and buying castor oil. That immediately starts to change where, that pharmacy needs to buy their goods from. It starts to change their view of what their suppliers are. It's an opportunity for us, amongst many other opportunities, to bring in new suppliers into the network.
Yeah, and that's an incredible example as well.
Mm.
Uh, the healthcare and pharmacy industry are obviously constantly changing, evolving. What are some of the biggest trends or that you're very excited about going forward? Are there any trends that you're excited about? Are there any regulations that you're afraid of? And how would this affect the business going forward?
Yeah, so I mean, we see a lot of positive tailwinds in the industry, absolutely. Not all of them are pleasant. I'll caveat that up front. We have to look at things like population growth that then leads to aging population growth. We have to look at things like illness and chronic illness management as areas that would indicate that consumers are going to still continue to go to pharmacy, and the pharmacy consumer side is going to continue to grow. And if you look at those kind of demographical shifts, there's a lot of positive indications. By 2041, the Australian population is looking to be around 31 million from currently about 25 million. The number of people aged over 85 is expected to double by that same year of 2041, which obviously has a significant influence on, people going to pharmacies for medications, etc. The number of people in Australia with a chronic illness is now at 85%, which is an astonishing figure. But again, it's a key indicator of where people are going to pharmacies and why we see that market maintaining some strength. That's our kind of demographic indicators. If we then look at kind of regulatory indicators, again, we see nothing but positives from our perspective. So there are changes in regulations which change essentially the scope of practice for a pharmacy. Increasingly, pharmacists are operating more closely in line with GPs and providing supportive services to GPs. Anything from vaccinations to now you can do sleep apnea testing in a pharmacy, all of these things which evolutions for the pharmacists. And it does have an impact on how they serve their communities, but it importantly has an impact on what they're serving their communities with. If we then think about other things like changing regulations around vaping, so from the 1st of October, nicotine-based vapes will only be able to be purchased through a pharmacy. So it's going to change the scope of what a pharmacy's role is in the community. But interestingly, I think it will also bring an entirely new customer into the pharmacy. Typically, you see customers in a pharmacy are kind of young parents, elderly people looking for care. Suddenly, you're getting a new customer coming in, and there are opportunities to upsell and cross-sell. And then lastly for us is technology. This is an industry that is very, very valuable. It has traditionally not been, I think, had the best level of innovation when it comes to technology, when it comes to efficiency and servicing. And I think that's the real opportunity for us. We're seeing through the entire supply chain management process, right down to ordering at store level, there is a drive and a need for efficiency and for technology to solve problems and solutions. And we sit right bang in the heart of that. So, we combine those things together and we see this industry having a very, very bright future, and us having a very, very bright future as the key player, as one of the key players in it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And as you said, like the aging population of Australia, the need for pharmacies is just going to increase. It's not going anywhere. And
Absolutely.
the need for efficient operations within those pharmacies is obviously going to be so important going forward as well. So that's all my questions done and dusted, which is fantastic. And thank you for all of your insight. Now I've got a very good question here in the Q&A box from one of our participants. Can you give some color as to how pharmacists actually access the marketplace? So is it via a POS? Is it through a screen? How easy and efficient is it for pharmacists or pharmacies? Sorry.
Yeah, so it's a web-based portal versus it being part of the POS, and that's one of the changing natures of how pharmacists are looking to order. We didn't have an opportunity to kind of talk about what I guess the marketplace for pharmacies actually means and what modernizing trade for pharmacists actually means. And it's about access, so accessibility through centralized web portal. It's about the provision of resources and enriched content. So, what products look like, what's in a product. It's about using good, smart, intelligent product services to provide alternatives, to provide better pricing opportunities for those pharmacies when they're shopping. And then really importantly, most of us probably on the call as consumers will be familiar with shopping on Amazon, right? You can go to Amazon as a consumer and you can buy, I don't know, you can buy protein powder, you can buy a bike, you can buy a computer, and you can buy a balloon, right? All in the same go, and you're going to do a single checkout. Now, all of those things are going to be served from multiple different suppliers, and quite likely from multiple different countries. Now, that's a one-click thing that we now just come to expect. In the land of B2B, that's actually a very, very difficult thing to overcome. And so we have built a single cart checkout for pharmacists, which does exactly that. It means they can order from multiple wholesalers, multiple suppliers with one checkout and still get their contractual pricing terms, and then everything connected back into our gateway technology. So they have their invoicing and they have certainty that their orders are going to be completed and fulfilled. And that sounds relatively simple because we're so used to it, but it's a huge, huge challenge within this space. And it solves a really, really critical problem and ultimately really modernizes how people can think about ordering.
Absolutely. Sounds like it's a huge step for the industry if it's not what they're used to as well.
Absolutely.
Obviously with retail, as you said, Amazon, a lot of these global brands, they make it so easy, but sounds like, pharmaceutical industry is probably, this is somewhat new. And as you said, it's so seamless for you guys and it makes so much more sense, but it's probably not what a lot of these pharmacies are used to.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I've got another question here. Do you see significant revenue potential from the analytics side of the business, or is that just a smaller part of the business?
Today, it's a smaller part of the business, but as we look at a kind of a 3-year trajectory of what analytics and data means for us, it will be a significant part of our revenue growth for sure. Data is the new gold, the new oil, whichever analogy you want to use. Insights, analytics, understanding to lead to optimization across businesses is incredibly vital, especially, as I said, in an industry that is crying out for technology and efficiency to drive better business outcomes. Data becomes critical to that. So we see the opportunity as very, very large. We're at the early stages. We are investing in it for the first time as a business. We have hired our head of data to establish our core data propositions. We are commercializing some limited solutions at the moment in market, but we anticipate over kind of years 2 and 3 for this to become far more significant.
Perfect. All right, Tom. Well, I think that I've covered everything I've thought of on my end. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for all our attendees for joining us today. As I mentioned prior, If you want to rewatch any part of the webinar, by all means, it's all available on our ShareWise YouTube channel. But yeah, Tom, thank you very much. It was very insightful, and very much look forward to seeing what PharmX Technologies has in the pipeline going forward.
Great. Thanks, Harry, and thanks everyone who joined today. Much appreciated.
Perfect. Thank you, mate.
Yeah.